Hey brothers and sisters, it's been a little while since I made a video. Uh, the world's just been, the more you look into this stuff and the more you share with others, the world definitely comes at you. So I've been dealing with a lot of nonsense. Uh, had to go to a court last week over like a tenant landlord issue, and some crazy guy was suing me. But it was actually good. I got to use a little of the information I talk about, so it was quick. It's funny because the case was over before it started, and it's just so funny how. And I've seen this on the other end before when I was fighting against like the borough I live in, and I had beaten them three different ways, and the judge let me go on for about an hour and a half, and immediately afterwards, of course I lost. And that was, when I kind of realized that it was all nonsense. It didn't matter what you said if you beat them. It was just an illusion, that it was just a complete lie, and that their whole system was set up so they could justify ruling any which way they wanted in their administrative hearings when you go into their world, into their realm. And with this, and I was funny, I'm thinking, I wonder why he let me, and he slipped up a couple times, basically telling me I lost, but he like tried to catch himself, that he's saying something that I could appeal after I lost today, or if I lost. And but I'm thinking, why did he let me go on for so long if, he obviously already knew his ruling. And the same thing I thought again with this hearing. He let this guy ramble on about nonsense that, I mean, I could tell the judge wasn't even paying attention. It was so ridiculous. And then it was funny. I had to wait 5 days for the verdict, and over a weekend, so it was more like 8. And when it with me against the borough, it was like an immediate decision. And I just thought, I'm like, well, I guess they're letting you talk because giving you the price of admission, making you feel like you got a good show. At least you were there, you got to speak and make it look good. Just part of the magic show. And that's what it is. He's sitting up there with his robe, his cape, up high in this courtroom that, we paid for, and, presiding down upon us because, he's a priest, his black robe of Baal, in this, in their administrative hearing, in their world of legalese. But it was pretty funny. Like I said, it was over before it started, and he just, like, I guess just to appease this man, and just as he did to me, to let us feel like, oh, okay, at least it was it was real. At least I had a shot in this. But it was funny how I saw it didn't matter what you spoke in there. It's all again all about the paperwork. That's the second dimension, the realm of paper. They can't hear you. The only ones they recognize as speaking is basically one of their own members of the legal society that are of rank. And again, for people that well, this video was about, for people that are new to this, because this was the title was going to try to draw some new people in, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the biggest conspiracy I feel, other than that the Bible's real, God's real, Satan's real, is this word game that's going on, the conspiracy in language. So what I'm talking about, and what I talked about in the other videos, is if you look at any ordinance, statute, code, regulation, act, whatever they write, always uses key words. Person or persons. That's just for instance. That's the beginning. They use other key words. And we've all been conditioned to think person and people are the same thing. Well, if you look up person in a legal dictionary, it says a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, a fictitious entity. And then if you look at the second meaning, it says individuals according to their rank in a society. And I'm thinking, rank in a society? A corporation, fictitious entity. What's all that mean? Well, Wawa or Walmart, they're legal persons. So it just goes all the way back even to like this, with slavery. The intention, it was a big ruse, all of it, for the people at the top, and very patient people, because they're dealing with spirits who, time is a whole another thing to them. It doesn't even really matter to them. It's not like it is for us. But it was a ruse all to not free the slaves, but with the socialist communist mindset in order, is to not so much lift them up, but to bring us down or meet in the middle somewhere. So it was all about lowering our status. And then the rank is exactly how they set up the hierarchy of hell, is what they're trying to make this world, as above so below. They're trying to make the pyramidal structure of rank. Of course, Lucifer at the top, and then the Masons have these charts, and then it goes all the way to the bottom, and we're at the bottom. That's what they want. We're the serfs, we're the goyim, we're, you know what I mean, we're the bond servants, the slaves. But they knew a long time ago that a man knowing he was a slave was harder to control than one who didn't believe he was. And that's what this world is. It's the world of make-believe. It's whatever you believe you can make true. It's true to you anyway. And I think that's why Jesus said so many times, you're healed because you believe, for your belief, or you're forgiven because you believe. It's all about believing. And the devil and Satan copying does the same thing. He wants you to believe this magic show. You know what I mean? He has unlimited resources because we pay for everything. We labor for it. We build it. We construct it. We put it on. And then we believe it, like the courtroom, or, like NASA. And I was trying to get some the flat earthers in here, the people, realizing that we're obviously not on a spinning globe. And the evidence is overwhelming. The only thing that's going to stop people from getting this is their own mind. That's what's really going to stop them, because the evidence is ridiculous. But and that's another one. The world is a sphere, but it's not a globe. It's not a ball. And again, it's the word game they do. Like sphere, you can, and just anything I say here, any definition, confirm for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. And in fact, it's better when you look it up, because something happens when you start looking these things up. You start getting a better understanding of so much more. You start seeing things multidimensional. And whenever I say that, I like to show this. How the Iron Cross, Hitler, and the Pope, all those people use. Well, because on the outward appearance, like the tares, they are disguised among the wheat. Like the devils, the wolves in sheep's clothing. Outwardly, it looks like a cross. But what it really is what they're setting up here. They have set up here. Is the unfinished pyramid, and the capstone is Lucifer. That's what they're waiting for Lucifer to put his son, the Antichrist, Apollo, just like Zeus is another name for Lucifer, for Satan, and his brothers, the other fallen angels, his son, Apollo, the sun god, or Thor, or, that's why you see these movies about it, and his other children on earth. But that's his only begotten son, just as Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. And I won't go too much. I have gone into that more in other videos, but one of the titles Lucifer has in Masonry is the light of limitless nothingness. So, look those words up, and it'll be interesting what you find. But sphere, I say we're on a sphere because what is a sphere? We just think it's a ball. But if you look the word up, and you just go to type in on Google, definition of sphere, and go to the freedictionary.com, and what it'll tell you what it is. It's not just the first definition, what we think. It'll also say range of knowledge, interest, activity. The night sky considered a vaulted sphere or firmament. Social class of society. And then it says aloft in the heavens, arena, domain, field, kingdom, realm. Circle, rank, class, station, or jurisdiction. They're modeling everything after this hierarchy. The social classes, and the key word here is realm. It's a dimension, a sphere of existence. This is where we are right now. It's a realm, and it's not a ball. Um, and it's funny, even when people bring up the star things, it's like, well, the North Star, Polaris, the 3-star system, and again, that's shown in the TriStar in the films, or when they do Paramount, when the stars are falling to the earth and they circle around a mountain. That just looked like the Book of Enoch, the fallen angels coming to earth, and they circle around Mount Hermon to make their agreement. And I've even heard celebrities repeat the phrase. They said, let's do this thing. Let us do this thing, or something like that. And I've heard Nick Cannon and other so-called stars say this exact phrase. And of course they do. Whether they know or not, I'm sure a lot do. But I honestly believe a lot don't. It's the spirit inhabiting them. Before I knew any of this, I talked about this before. When I was between 16 and 19, 20, I got all these tattoos all over my body. That obviously I wish I didn't do now, but they're there. And every one of them had to do with this topic. I knew nothing about it, but every single one has to do with all this. I even researched Chinese letters, got books to translate, and I have like 4 sentences all over on my back in Chinese, confirmed it with someone that spoke Chinese and could write it. And it was all phrases to do with the Luciferian doctrine. And I had no idea. I didn't know any of it. I mean, I grew up in a household. My mother was into all the New Age stuff, so I was surrounded by that. But I never heard her say any of this. What I put on my back, and like the picture. I mean, every single. I mean, I have 100 hours of tattoos on my body, and everything has to do with that. So it's the spirit. If you don't have the Holy Spirit in you, you are by default led by the spirit of the world. You're led by Satan, and he uses people, according to his plans. And the way he makes plans, he sees farther ahead than us. Like as adults, we should, plan ahead. Most don't. Most just plan for the day, like a child. But we would plan in advance for things. But how to do with children, just plan for the moment. So it's them having so much more knowledge and time and experience. They see farther than us. They have a better perspective. But I'll get more into the word meanings, and for some that have seen the videos before, it may be repetitive, but I think it's good. The more you hear it, the more you understand. And for common law, people need to check out Carl Lentz, because this is truly the key. The guy found the missing piece. A lot of people have researched the court stuff, but I'm telling you right now, unless you're connected or they want to make it look good, you cannot win in their legal society. And that's what the word person, individuals according to their rank in a society. Well, what society? The legal society. When you name something, you have dominion over it. When Adam named the animals, he had dominion over them. I mean, even today, as a child, the first thing when you get a pet, what are you excited about? Giving it a name to make it yours. So in older times, when this, what Christians would do is when they had a birth, a marriage, a death, they would record those events in their family Bible. Today, we record them with the state, but it's not just a record. Like when the birth certificate, you've heard, I'm sure people that looked into this, all kinds of stuff about the birth certificate, but it is true. When you get the birth certificate, and you can look up the word born or birth in the legal dictionary, and it says wholly brought into separate existence. That certificate is like an article of incorporation. They've just created a fictitious entity with a name similar to yours, and that is what they have control over. They named that. They created that. That's their creation. We're not their creation, but that piece of paper, that fictitious entity, that corporation is their creation. They named it. So what they do is they create joinder, or they make, like they would make I, a man, the surety for that legal person. And they trick us into doing it ourselves. And all through the Bible, that's what we see. And everything in this world is surety, insurance. Jesus stood as surety for us, for our sin. He took our place. That's why he's our redeemer. He redeemed us. He was our and he had to come into this world into not only a physical body as a man, but in the bloodline too. He came as a specific bloodline on both sides, on Mary and his adopted father, Joseph. So he would have a legal right to pay our debt, and that's how we're saved. It's just, no different than if you're in jail or owe fines and they're going to arrest you, and if you don't have the money, a relative can pay that debt for you, or in old times, a family member could stand in for another. That's what it's based on. Jesus was our surety. And there's all kinds of Bible verses about that. One of my favorites, and especially in Proverbs, but I like Proverbs 11:15. He who is surety for a stranger is a fool, something like that. And it says, he who hates suretyship is sure. It's all warnings about being surety throughout the Bible. And the other videos I do, I name the verses and everything. That's just the one I remember off the top of my head. And there was another one. I'm sorry, I just can't remember right now. But it was talking about how they would, in one of my last couple of videos, I talked about this, how they will take us with our own words. They set up snares for us. So, simple thing in court, just by saying that name, they're not bringing you into the court. They're bringing that legal person. When you respond or when you show up, you're breathing life like God breathed life into Adam. You're breathing life into that fictitious entity. You're giving it a voice. And that's who they have jurisdiction over, control. But they have to make you believe it's you. That's why this smoke and mirrors is done. They have to make you believe it's you. So that's why the Constitution, and even the Constitution, is shaky. Like, you don't really rely on that, because if you think your rights and freedoms come from a piece of paper, then you can lose them from a piece of paper. If you know they came from God, that you were given these rights, but it's a gift that no one could take away, but you can give it away with free will. Whether you do it knowingly or unknowingly. And it's funny, I even seen in the book of Enoch, I was reading it again, but it's funny, every time you read these books, you catch so much more based on the new knowledge you have. But there was an angel, I think Penuel was the one who taught about writing. And the first three letters is pen, for pencil or pen. And we weren't even originally intended to use pen and paper. This has all been designed as a trap, What else did I want to get into? Oh, and more on what's happening in the courts is they're filing a complaint, because no man or woman is ever going to come forth and say you've done wrong, or that legal person's done wrong, or testify anyway, because the lawyers will never testify. They're coming in there as wearing their mask, and that's what person and people, two different words. These ordinances never say people, man, or woman. It's always person, and person comes from Latin persona. And what that means is the mask an actor wears on stage. And that goes into Shakespeare saying the world is a stage. It goes into Eyes Wide Shut. They're wearing all their masks. They're showing their persons. They're emulating the demons and these demonic spirits. And another thing, the word demon is not in the King James Bible. It does not appear ever. It's always devil. And the reason for that change was when you look up demon, that refers to like older gods, and it gives it more of a benevolent, more of a, I guess benevolent's a good word for it, benevolent nature, as opposed to what they are. They're devils. And even with possession, think about the word possession. They possess something. Well, how do they possess it? They were either someone was tricked into it by opening up a gateway, or someone did it willingly. And that's what a lot of these people, if you want to call them that at the top, they're born into this. So every ritual, every level, every degree is a ritual to give further access to more devils. And the movies train us that the possession's always like, Linda Blair and The Exorcist and some insane thing, but it's not always like that. These people are perfectly possessed. They're in agreement with it, and they're just vehicles, for these beings. So that's what person comes from, persona. It's the mask that, and we've been given so many clues. I mean, even in that movie, The Counselor, that was just out, it's all talking about surety, one standing for another, uh, cautionary. I mean, the whole movie is about that. And like I said, if you don't know this stuff, that movie may seem, a bit weird, or, things don't make sense. But that's why these movies are so, the movies are given awards because of not only the agenda they're pushing, but the layers of the film. It's multidimensional. There's a surface layer just for entertainment, for the people that don't know any of this, and even that word, entertain. What's tain? If you look up the word tain, it's the metal, the aluminum on the back of the mirror, and that's what they're doing. They're flipping this over to the mirror world, the exact opposite of how everything truly is. They're distorting reality, perception. So the first layer is just the entertainment, and then the next layer is, as far as there's different levels for initiation of what you know. And I mean, there's so many ways they do these tricks in court, just like a simple traffic ticket and stuff. Four corner brackets or something in a box means it doesn't appear on the page. So no one's ever signing anything. You know what I mean? The only one in there that's even speaking or testifying is you. And even when the officer gets up there, he's not speaking as a man. He's in the administrative second dimension world. He's speaking as an officer based upon a complaint. And when you think about that hierarchy, God made man, so man can never tell God what to do. All we can do is make complaints or prayers or applications to beg. That's what an application is, a beg, and you submit your application. You submit to beg. So man created government to serve it. Man created officers, magistrates, because the judge in common law is the jury. Created all these things for its benefit, never to harm it, because man is its creator. But as we've slowly fallen away from God and fallen away from our true system and let our Frankenstein monster go loose, it's wreaked havoc. But the original system is still there waiting for people who know how to use it. It still works. So government, our creation, doesn't like not being able to control man. So what did the people do that were involved in government? They created legal persons. So a legal person can never tell an officer what to do, even though he's a public servant. Can never tell government what to do. They can only make complaints. And that's all there is, But at any time, you can take that hat off and make your own claim. That's what a man makes. A man makes a claim. Just like for land, a mine, like you see that Groom Lake mine that's going on right now, that hearing. And I try to send messages to those people to tell them check out Carl Lentz, KarlLentz, and there's clips of him speaking on YouTube, but his show was called Uncommon Law with a K, UNK, on Talk Show, and there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of him, and I don't know if he's still doing the live show on Saturday nights. I haven't checked in a little while, but it's amazing what he found. They took this man's kid and kept him for 5 or 6 years, and he went through so much, and he had a little help from I guess either a clerk or the magistrate there. Finally felt bad for him because his whole case was based on a fake contract. They put someone else's contract in with social services. It had nothing to do with him, and he couldn't get the FBI to look in, but get the contract. He couldn't get other judges. I mean, he was living in a shipping container, basically a storage container, while he was doing all this, and he finally found out and he got his kid back. But literally, he's helped people get their kids back in 2 days by calling them property, because government's only function is to secure and protect the property of man. And we've been taught property is, this, a pen, a physical object. But it's not that. If you look up what, like James Locke and other people from that time talked about property, and even if you look up the definition and start reading about it, you'll see property is everything. Your beliefs, your rights, that's your property. Your children's a legalese word. You refer to them as your property, So literally, it's just retraining your brain. They file a complaint against you. You send a simple letter. Like, court was only designed for when there's when there is a problem that can't be resolved, when there's a conflict that can't be resolved between the two parties. So you don't want to create conflict. So you get a notice from a borough or something telling you violated code or ordinance, blah blah blah. You send a simple letter back. We've lost the art of letter writing, pen and ink. Simple letter back. Greetings. Greetings, Jim. Thank you for this lovely communication. Who, or if it's not signed, greetings. Thank you for this lovely communication. Who are you? Who do you believe I am? And you mail it out. You don't do everything at once. You don't start fighting with them because that creates the conflict. That's going to bring you into court. And that's how the civil stuff goes on. I mean, you see lawyers making cases going for 7, 8 years. It's because they're just playing this letter game, this back and forth, like court. And that's all court is, the back and forth. They're both making money, and the people there are just not knowing what's going on, just thinking it's supposed to take this long when it can be resolved in, a couple days. So, then if they send something back, and be like, oh, is this communication intended for some legal person or legal name? Because, or a man, because I am a man. And if I've done wrong to any other man or woman, just send me a verified claim, and I'll be happy to, I'll be more than happy to pay the debt. Or something simple like that. It's just like simple language. Like if you had a problem with someone, be like, you find out who they are. Who are you? Who do you believe I am? Then it's just something, a simple response of, do you believe I did wrong? Like wrong or right. That's common law words. And just to show that, Carl just put this on his website. He doesn't change his website much, but he just put this. The common law, it was a plaque in Virginia, and it says, the common law. Here the common law of England was established on this continent with the arrival of the first settlers on May 13, 1607. The first charter granted by James I to the Virginia Company in 1606 declared that inhabitants of the colony shall have and enjoy all liberties, franchises, and immunities as if they had been abiding and born within this our realm of England. Since Magna Carta, the common law has been the cornerstone of individual liberties, even as against the Crown summarized later in the Bill of Rights. Its principles have inspired the development of our system of freedom under law, which is at once our dearest possession and proudest achievement, presented by the Virginia State Bar. So this is the Bar of Virginia acknowledging common law. And what they've brought in is this Roman law, and which goes back to Babylon. It's just running parallel. So, and if the letter thing, if they finally end up taking you to court, what you would do is the man or woman filing that complaint, you're going to file a claim against them. Like your first couple letters is to find out what's going on. And then if they persist, you just tell them, if you continue this trespass, because that's what everything basically is, a trespass, you will be doing I, a man, great harm, as well as injury to my person, my property or person. And that's why you're given the fair warning. If they don't drop the case, then you're filing a claim against that man or woman. And you can find out more from Carl and the website and how to set up the paperwork. But it's basically easy. Your claim is basically 1 or 2 sentences with a few precise words, and then everything else attaches an exhibit. And anything you want to put on there, even if you put your name, like I, a man, you can put next to it, Anthony, blah blah blah, but put it in the 4 corners brackets, But just them talking, when you get to court, you don't even want to speak. You're there just to press your claim upon the record of the court. That's it. You're gonna speak. You're gonna breathe the words that you wrote down, and that's all. That's why you want to make your claim simple, because you want to vary from what you said on the paper, and that's it. And the evidence is their paperwork or what they're doing. They're trespassing on your property, trespassing, my property, and you can even put the brackets rights or, but the evidence is all the exhibits. I mean, it's very simple. It's just the state of mind and trying to get over the magic show they're putting on. So to show some of the new people, I'm sorry, a lot of it I was just talking, but to show some other stuff you can instantly verify, Funny, the fixed star in the sky, Polaris, in Greek means Satan. That's interesting. The three-star system. Uh, what else do we want to get into? And the other words I found in my initial videos, and how this happened, and I'm not taking any credit for it at all because I knew none of this, is probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. I started having the worst anxiety, and I didn't know what it was from, and it wouldn't go away. And I was looking things up online, just typing various things, what's wrong in the world today, what's going on. I just felt like this horrible feeling just came over me and wouldn't leave. And finally, I just got to the point at my desk, at my office, is I just said my first real prayer ever. And I said, God, if you're real, can you please just show me? Can you just show me the truth, what's going on in the world? And literally since that time, I've heard 30, 40 other people speaking, or writing, or things they've written, saying that same exact prayer came over them. And within weeks, I was starting to find out all the conspiracy stuff. And it didn't make, I made no connection with the prayer at all. I wasn't thinking about that at all. But I see now that God, of course, being my creator, knew the exact way I had to learn. Because for me, in my mind already, even though I had never read the Bible or had anyone tell me anything really about it other than the lies that most people are led to believe about it, or seeing these fake Catholic churches and other churches, the worst people ever, and thinking, oh, this can't be real. If these people are supposedly believers in God, they sure don't act like it. I want no parts of that. And I think that trap happens to a lot of people. You see the supposed Christians in the world, and they're terrible, most of them, and I'm speaking all of them. I'm just saying the front that's out there that makes us disbelieve. But the exact way I needed to learn, for the Bible to be true, there must be massive conspiracies in every area of life. And that couldn't be possible, I thought. But if you follow even that logic further, it's like, well, if God's real, the Bible's real, then there's also other characters that are real, like Satan, fallen angels, demonic spirits, devils, wicked spirits, people that are followers, his children. Genesis 3:15, the two seeds, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And I honestly believe that's what we have today. These Illuminati, these secret societies at the top people, are literally the seed of the devil. And they use this word game, because if Jesus Christ is the Word of God, so what other way better to attack us than with words, by tricking us into saying things. I mean, another court term was suffer, the word suffer, pain and suffering. Well, suffer means to experience pain or whatever by your own choice. You had the ability to stop it and you never did. So you're allowing it to happen, just like Jesus suffered on the cross. Well, he could have stopped it at any moment. He could have, legions of angels. He could have, himself. But he endured to pay our debt, to be surety for us, so that we had an opportunity to be redeemed. And even that, when you look up the word Milky and Way, like the galaxy they say we're in, it means opportunity to advance. In other words, you can look up, I thought about tree, and that one was like, who would look up the word tree? We all know what a tree is. But literally, it says in there, a figure that branches from a single genealogical root. Well, that means one directly created from God. Doesn't have a grandfather, doesn't have a great-grandfather. Adam, he was a tree. These angels are the sons of God. They came directly from God. Another one I found, looked up the word angel, and this one blew me away. It said, a financial backer of a political campaign or a dramatic production. I'm thinking, well, how do they control our minds? Govern, control, meant mind. It's through politics and movies, dramatic production, movies and entertainment and plays and everything, books, literature. What else? Even their famous saying that they put on the front of their book, the Freemasons, order out of chaos. Well, we know the surface meaning, but again, like everything else, you got to think about the multidimensional layer, because that's what these beings are, multidimensional. So they're going to multidimensional thinking. Is when they're saying a sentence, it means things that are true on each layer. So order literally means, when you look it up, one of the 9 sects or choirs of angels, and chaos means the abyss. So when they're talking about order out of chaos, they're talking about the sect or choir of angel out of the abyss. And that's what this whole thing is about. They've been trying to free Apollyon, their king, at the bottomless pit, and those other ones there the whole time. Spiritually they may be able to call things up or, let things into this realm, but that's not what they want. Like CERN and the LHC, I've done a video on that. They're trying to create the rainbow bridge, and that's the big push on the homosexual thing. That's one of the layers of it, is that flag, that rainbow flag, like in Thor, that movie, the rainbow bridge. They want to translate, just as God translates us in the rapture, to change our form. And translate, again, is a key word. Translate from one language to another. You're changing something. Changing not only words, but you're changing forms. But you think God spoke this whole world into existence, so in a way we are words, we are frequency, we are vibration. He breathed life into us. When you speak, you're breathing life into your thoughts. So that rainbow bridge, they want to translate those beings into something that can function in this realm. And that's what they're doing. They're bringing it here. And that's when the ancient Egyptians and Babylonians, they would have their rituals for their Antichrist finger, like Nimrod, who became a mighty one. Well, that mighty one is another name for the Nephilim, the giants. Well, they needed a fit extension. It had to be prepared first. It had to be the right host body, and then after the preparation, just as we, the bride of Christ, the church, are being prepared for that translation, and that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring that realm here. They're trying to bring those entities here and use the fit extension. And I've talked about who I believe I was led to see that the Antichrist is, and I won't get into that too much, except that the word image, when you look that up, it literally says a clone. And why a clone is perfect, and they've shown us in Avatar and other movies, it's a vacant vehicle. It's a vehicle with no soul in it. So there's no struggle there. There's no chance of anything to do with God, because even when you start thinking about how God would tell people to build to construct a little, not a temple, but they would just put stones. He always talked about stones not shaped with the hand, with hands. Well, that's what a clone is. That's what we are. We're stones not shaped with hands. We're God's creation. But when you make a clone or a transhumanist, or when you're mixing these DNAs, the hands of man are involved. You're altering it, and God will never dwell with wickedness. He will not dwell when there's evil there. His perfection will not mix with imperfection. And a quick side note, it's like the whole transhumanist agenda. It's funny. They want to talk about how science only believes in the material and not the spiritual, but it's like transhumanists admits, it confirms to all these people there is a spiritual, because what are you transferring? You're transferring consciousness. Well, you can't touch you can't see it, you can't measure it, but it's there. And it's the same thing. It's like trying to find smashing a radio to trying to find the music. Where's the music coming from? From outside. It's being sent in like a signal, like a frequency, just as our spirits or conscience are sent into us like a frequency. This is just a vehicle, this body. The spiritual world is the real world. This place is an arena. This is a dimension, a realm, a domain, And it's funny, all these words, when you start looking at the meanings, always have like mathematical definitions and computer definitions, because the whole online, the virtual reality is what this place is. It's like a model of a model. And when I hear people bash God, or why would he create a world like this? Well, he didn't. He created a perfect world, and Adam and Eve were deceived. They were tricked with the word game. That's the first instance of the word. I did a whole video on that too, how that was the first instance of the word game, where she got tricked, and Adam followed her, just as Jesus followed us into this world. He did it as an act of being with her, not to leave her, because she was part of him. She was taken from his rib, which I know for a fact the rib is the bone grows back And of course, how could they know that back then? But I believe it's the only bone, when you take it out precisely, that it will regenerate, which I thought was interesting. How could they know that, thousands of years ago? And just one more of the millions of proofs of the Bible. But she was part of him. She was part of him, and just like we're part of God, part of Jesus. So he came into this world when he didn't have to rescue us, a rescue mission. And even when people, like me, I've fallen into depression over this stuff. It's hard to take, but it's a learning lesson. What's better way to learn than by experience? So it's like if you were learning to be a pilot, would you hop into a 747 or would you hop into a fighter jet and just start going? No, you would go into a simulator. You would take a ground school first, then a simulator. Well, that's what this world is. It's a simulation. This is a blink of an eye. God says, 1,000 years is a day to him. Well, when you calculate that all the way down, our whole lifespan is a matter of a couple minutes. And you can figure that out. 1,000 is 1 day, 500 is 12 hours, 250 is 6 hours. Break it all the way down and find out what our lifespan is. It's minutes to him. And I mean, it's tough to us, and that's the perception of time here. That's part of our realm, and that's part of the punishment. It's like a time out. We've gotten a time in. We're put in this realm to go through this experience of repetition to get it right. And the only way to get it right is, again, to be saved by Jesus. He already did the work, and all we have to do is come to believe. And believe, again, is another one of those words. Believe doesn't just mean, I believe this paper exists. Well, the devils believe that Jesus exists. They know he's real. They acknowledge him through the Bible. But believe means to love. If you believe something, your actions follow that belief. You're going to tell people. You're going to act a certain way. You're going to try not to sin anymore. You're going to care if you do sin, if you mess up. You're going to repent. You're going to pray. You're going to, you're going to act on that. I could say I believe in leprechauns, but my actions don't reflect that. And that's what believe means. And who knows, those leprechauns maybe find out everything else is real. I'm sure it's based on some kind of crazy truth. And even the words like, you look up the word human. That's another word. I hate that word. I have it here, one of my older notebooks, because I always wondered where it came from. Why human? We're man. God created man in his image, and God has no respect of persons. But hue, H-U-E, means alter, change, modify. And what they're doing in these courtrooms is called color of law, C-O-L-O-U-R. It's an attribute of things that result from the light they reflect, transmit, or emit, insofar as the light causes a visual sensation that depends on its wavelengths. The aspect of visual perception by which an observer recognizes this attribute. The quality of the light producing this aspect of visual perception, quality and quantity of ink used in a printing process, the distinctive tone of a musical sound, vividness, authenticity, or individuality, to influence or distort something, to cause to appear different from reality, camouflage, disguise, give a deceptive explanation or excuse for, misrepresent, falsify, exaggerate, prejudice, pervert, taint, and the last one said burn. So color of law is what they're doing. Color, color of law, hue. Hue also means color. So hue man is the color of man. It's like man, but it's not. Human being. What other words do they use? Mankind. Humankind. You know what I mean? It's staying away from the word man, because as a man, we have domain here still. Even the curse when the serpent, which serpent doesn't mean a talking snake, serpent, a vile or retractable person. There's lots of definitions for serpent, a dragon. These words have multiple meanings. It's written poetically, and who knows, in the spiritual world, these things probably look like these things too, but the serpent that beguiled Eve, deceived her. Beguiled also means to rape, and that's a whole other area where, there's some strong evidence to suggest that's what happened. And, Cain was that first son of Satan. But I don't want to go too far into that because a lot of people get upset by that, and I don't understand why. Because right in Genesis 6:4 it talks about fallen angels mating with human women's and producing the giants. Well, again, the word giant, I did this in the last video, doesn't mean just a tall person, tall being. Giant in capital, giant in finance, giant in intellect, giant in all these magical witchcraft arts, so on and so on. You know, that's what it literally means. What else? I'm jumping all over. I apologize, but my head just thinks about this stuff constantly, and it's all over the place with it. What else? Oh, and then the human, with the money we use today, you know, since we were initially supposed to use gold and silver, actual physical substance, we use this fiat money. It's the color of money. It's like money, but it's actually called a note, which is an IOU or debt. It's the opposite. So they're trying to make everything the opposite here. Everything to disprove the Bible. You know, again, like they tell us we're on this ball and it's spinning, but it's just crazy because everything goes against common sense, against common law. Just trying to make us think we have to rely on these experts and compartmentalize everything so you can't tell. Make it into individual bricks on that pyramid so no one can ever see the full picture. And I see as these days are playing out and this training's going on, most people can't even take the two steps. Like if they're doing a transaction, they literally have to do each one separate. They can't do it all together because they're so single-minded now. Like they can't focus on more than what's in front of them. They're becoming like animals. They're really becoming like beasts that only care about the basic functions. I mean, to tell people some of this information and to show them the evidence, just like with the giant human skeletons, I mean, just type that in Google. Newspaper articles about giant human skeletons. There's thousands of them. Thousands. And these are archaeologists finding them too, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. I have a book right here by L.A. Marzulli, you know, showing the pictures. There's skulls in Peru. And then right away, without even looking into it, oh, those were cradle boarding. They boarded their heads. Well, some people did, yeah, but that doesn't add mass and density. They like more mass to the skull. And then they did DNA, and they find, of course, the woman was human, and the male DNA is of unknown origin. He did like a triple blind study with 3 different genetic labs. They didn't even know what they were testing. And they hide this because they have to persist with the lie of evolution. And even that, when you carry evolution, even if you believed evolution, and which is, I think, just a setup, you know, it's just like all this globe Earth and all these other planets out there, and there has to be life out there. Because if what they say is true, it would be logical to conclude there would be more life out there. But it's setting it up for the alien creators that seeded this planet. I even heard Richard Dawkins, that devil, say in one breath, there's no way there's a God, a creator, it's impossible, blah, 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 blah. And then like literally in the next sentence saying that, well, yeah, aliens could have created us. What? They could create us and design some evolutionary process, and they too were, you know, formed from evolutionary process. You just said we couldn't have been created, but yeah, now aliens could do it. God can't, but aliens can. I mean, these people are so hypocritical, and I'm sure some are just flat out lying devils, but the other ones are so blinded by the nonsense, they can't even see how they contradict themselves in every sentence. But if you follow evolution out to its logical conclusion that we're all just bags of flesh and blood and, you know, just chemical reactions happen in our brains, then there should be no government. There should be no law. It should just do whatever people feel like doing, because who's right and who's wrong? There is no right or wrong. Whatever you feel like doing is right. And that's the whole of the Luciferian doctrine. Do what thou will. You know what Aleister Crowley said. Do what thou will. Whatever you want to do it. Why not? Sure, you only go around once, so just have fun. So there should be no control. There should be no government, let alone a one world government. You know? So it doesn't even make their own philosophy falls apart when they're pressed on it, but they can't see it. I literally posted something on a Kent Hovind video the other day, one of his newer ones, and I love his creation stuff, but I think some of his beliefs have got shifted a little, and, you know, the things I disagree with, but, we're allowed to have disagreements. I still think he has some amazing, amazing creation videos, stuff that were never shown that that he destroys them in the debates. They have nothing to say because they're all just taught lies. But the comment was about saying they were talking about light, and I said, well, the one-way speed of light can't be measured. So of course instantly I get attacked by someone who claimed to be an engineer or whatever he was, which I kind of doubt, but it just seemed like he was copy and paste and stuff. But he's arguing, he called me names, blah blah blah, and he's like, I don't know why you would believe these lay people, blah, and the crackpots like Ken Hovind, and it took like 5 times to tell him, look, Ken Hovind never even addressed this issue. This is your own mainstream science. We've all been lied to, telling us it's 186,000 miles per second. That's the two-way. That's the two-way speed of light divided by 2. Because they can't measure it. It's impossible to measure here. Because even when you set up the clocks, since light's the fastest thing, you can't calibrate the 2 clocks. So we've been lied to because that number fits in, because light could be instantaneous for all we know. And some labs even claim that they've slowed it down or completely stopped it. So obviously if God created light, he can make it whatever speed he wants or instantaneous. But it fits in with how long the light would take to get here, and that these stars are, trillions and billions of miles away, which they can't prove, that it's all just nonsense. But they make us believe again that this is fact, when you look, they openly admit that it wasn't even creationists ever saying this. It was other mainstream scientists saying that, no matter what you come up with, you're still measuring the round trip. So, and you can see how the deception goes, because what do they say? They start calling them light years. Well, we're measuring distance, not time. But right away to give the billions of years in existence and the Big Bang, that everything came from nothing, and you even hear that disgusting viper Lawrence Krauss saying that nothing has been he admits it. Nothing's been redefined. Nothing can mean everything. And what? I mean, they're changing reality, our perception of reality. Nothing can mean everything. Well, if there was no time, space, or matter, what exploded? When did it explode? And there was nothing to explode, but it all came, and it's all shrinking. It's going to expand and shrink back down. I mean, they're just making nonsense. They're science fiction writers. That's what cosmology is. It's just all these nonsensical theories. Well, this could have been. Well, yeah, I can think of 1,000 different nonsensical things and then call it science. And I'd probably win a Nobel Prize as long as it went completely opposite to the Bible. And it's funny, the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, you look up the word peace, and one of the definitions means death, like rest in peace. So when they say they want peace, they want death. That's what their cult is. They're a death cult. That's who they worship. The angel of death. What else? I have like suitcases full of papers. NASA. The very word NASA, if you spell it with an H at the end Hebrew, I think it means lift, carry, journey, captain, cloud, exalted one, king, sheik, rising mist, governor, chief, prince, ruler. Well, the prince of the power of the air, that's Satan. He's been called the chief. Or the rising mist, he's the prince of the power of the air. He's also God. I beheld him like lightning from the heavens. Or if you put an H after the S, like Nasha, means to beguile, deceive, seduce, lend on interest, which the usury, which how they make us debt slaves. And like I said, it's all just been dominoes. You pull people away from God. You alter the money system. This debt-based money system of notes. They create money out of thin air and just get you in debt. Debt, another word for debt, is sin. Sin and debt are the same meaning. What else did I want to talk about? Another interesting definition, because I believe the King James version, and I didn't even know there was a controversy in the beginning. People that argued about this, but After I was start to be shown these things, I didn't even own a Bible, and the one woman who I was renting a house to, she had passed away, and her family came and took all the belongings, and all they left outside was there was literally a small bag of clothes, and then sitting on top was three books, two King James Bibles, and a huge dictionary. And of course, I just saw them. I'm like, well, I can't throw these away. My mom had thousands of books. I always had a respect for books. And, even though I wasn't a believer in the Bible or a Christian, and it was the last thing I would have ever believed or wanted to believe. There was no way it could have been possible in my mind. But I still am like, you can't throw them away. It's just wrong. So I kept them. And that's what I learned from was the King James. And then that dictionary I saw later on. Again, I didn't make the connection, but later on I saw him like, he's showing me that was exactly what God was leading me to. This exact topic was these definitions, and the word translation, or what was it? No, version, like the King James version. Version has multiple meanings as well. Every word has multiple meanings. I'm telling you, any word you see, just look it up and read all the definitions. You will be blown away. I'm telling you. And this is what they do. They play this word game, this meaning. They shift the meanings. They do it in evolution, too, with the whole macro and micro evolution. But version means a literal translation. And then another definition means one's a story told from one's point of view, one's perspective. So when they're giving versions, it's from their perspective. Just like if these devils call themselves a Christian, well, they are Christian. They're waiting for their Christ, their Messiah, their Antichrist, the Apollyon. Satan is their God. In God we trust on the money. That's their God. They trust is Satan. So it's just a word game. They can say whatever they want. Like even with the Constitution, was destroyed by the necessary and proper clause. Patrick Henry and about half the delegation walked out, didn't sign, and there should be like twice the number of signatures on there, but they didn't sign because of that clause. And it basically says they can do whatever they deem necessary or proper, to keep government functioning. Well, what's necessary mean? What's proper? What you can define that in anything. And like I said, you see that with these court cases. I mean, they're showing you that's what it is. It's a huge word game, And I just need this stuff to get out because it's so huge. It's like the answer to these courts to make these, officials act as public servants. And they do. When you start using these keywords, they may not know, but they sure check with their legal departments. And you can see even with Carl Lentz, one woman's from Guyana, she's on a phone call, and child services out there, all these cop cars are out there, she's on the phone, he's telling her what to say word for word, and they're threatening to kick in the door and do all this nonsense. After she repeats for about 5 minutes, she's saying that they're all out there on their phone. They're all calling the legal department to find out if they can be held personally liable, because you can't sue an officer. If you do, an officer is perfect. It's something we created. It's a second dimension thing. So an officer can never do anything wrong. The man who sometimes operates in the capacity of an officer, he can do wrong, and he could be held personally liable, and no badge, no gun, no badge, or no surety bond that they have to operate under is going to protect him. He can be held personally liable. You can take his pension. You can take everything, and you absolutely should for these wicked officers that don't obey. And there's plenty of great ones. My wife was in law enforcement, and I confirmed this information with a magistrate or two, just in passing. And they don't like to tell you too much, but you can confirm it in different ways. They know what's going on. They may not know the whole scenario, but they know this is all bullshit and it's a word game. Just the word you in the beginning. Do you? Well, you is always plural. It's a plural word. That's why the King James is so important, using the ye's and the thee, the thou. It's using the perfect grammar. It's perfect grammatically, and it lets you know exactly who they're referring to. Well, the word you is a joinder word. It creates joinder to you, the man, and you, the legal person. You know what I mean? It's creating that joinder. So again, the whole person of the legal society, it's that legal name. That's what they have control over, that legal name. And that's it. They just need to create that joinder to make you surety. I think that's all I have time for. But, I hope I hope this helps, and definitely, like I said, look into Carl Lentz. I couldn't speak better about it because I'm telling you, he literally found the key to the missing key to all this. And with him, it's funny, with law, it's kind of opposite of what I had found. He's finding that there's precise meanings in common law, in the courts. You have to be like deadly accurate, and they're playing the word game, but we have to be deadly accurate. But what I found is that with the Bible, when God's speaking, since He's the creator of everything, like we get hung up so much on the language. Like you hear people talk about the Hebrew and the Greek. It's like those are dead languages. What we have today isn't even the same thing. And you don't think God doesn't understand English? I mean, do you think they're speaking Hebrew in heaven or Greek? No. Whatever way they're communicating is far more advanced than we know. But He's the designer of everything, of thought itself. So He understands the meaning of everything, let alone words. And these angels, who are far more intelligent than us, know the meanings of all these words in different languages. They understand it, how it works. So when God's speaking in the Bible, He's telling us things, and it's written the same way with layers. It's designed so a child can understand it, with the parables and the visuals and the poetic writing. But it's literally true. And then when you look at it on the layers, you're going to find out when you look up these words, He's telling you much more. He's telling you so much more that's there that you can find. Like I said, the one part, and I said this a few times in other videos, but I've heard atheists say this before, be like, oh, they brought up this passage where, a bastard shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven, not even till the 10th generation. Well, immediately they assume he's talking about a fatherless child. But bastard, when you look it up, literally says a hybrid. He's talking about the Nephilim, the giants again, who the whole world was inhabited by these things, and that's why the flood was sent. And Noah was the 10th generation. That's a confirmation that's what he was talking about. Because again, they're a mixture. They're an abomination. They have no salvation. And there was a Stephen King movie, a little series on TV, The Storm of the Century. And the main wicked character in there, he's obviously one of these Nephilim who's living a long time. And he says this little poem he repeats throughout the series, and it says, born in sin, come on in. Born in lust, turn to dust. Or I think that's what it is. Turn to dust. Well, born in sin, come on in. He's referring to us. He's angry because we have an opportunity to be redeemed. And it says in the book of Enoch how these Nephilim, these hybrids, hated the women for bringing them into this world because they were damned. They had no hope of salvation. They're not a creation of God. They're something different. So they have no hope of being saved, and nor do they want it. They hate it all. They're just totally different. They're a different creation. And that's what he was saying, turn to dust, that, they're going to be burned, that they're going to literally die here, turn to dust, and they have no hope. And I obviously don't understand it all, but, that's what it tells us. There's always so much more. I just don't have time, and I've already babbled on for an hour. That's real quick, Babylon. The one phrase where they said, let us make a name for ourselves. They wanted their own name, make us a name, because they didn't want to be under dominion. They wanted, and I think that was a foretelling of this name game and word game. And another quick one, I brought it up before, but I really think this one's important, is when the serpent's cursed to go on his belly. If you look up the word belly, you will literally find it says, one of the meanings, a corporation. And that's how this is all set up. Like these nations, even like the nation of Israel, isn't the true nation of Israel. It's not what the Bible tells us. It's this corporation that calls itself Israel. Just like the United States, all capital letters, is a corporation, and even their Supreme Court admitted it. The real Supreme Court of the land is a common law court of record, not any of their courts. And that one, even they're called magistrates because the judge in a common law trial is the jury. The magistrate is just a referee there. That's it. He's a witness to the proceeding. There's just so much more. I think that's all I can do for today. But I just thought that was interesting. Like the belly literally means corporation, and that's what Satan has set up, a corporeal being. It's all corporations, many corporations, all many bricks on the pyramid. All coming under the Antichrist elite, and they're all just one. It's turning into one big conglomerate down to people, to persons. There's many corporations all the way up being ruled, and I think it was one of the Rockefellers or Rothschild, I forget who said it, but what was the key to success, or it was the key in owning nothing but controlling everything. And I think why he says owning nothing, number one, they might not even be a man, they may be one of these hybrids, but also a corporation can't own land, just like a bank. A bank can't own land. Land and man are like a synonym almost. I mean, we literally come from the earth. We are the land. So, and we live off the land. Everything we eat is from the land, and then when we die, we return to the land. It's that cycle, that circle that we're here for. And the Bible says the circle of the earth. It may be referring to the flat, circular, earth, but again, in circle is another. When you look that up, it's the same thing as sphere, is dimension, realm. So it's telling us in the Bible that's what this is. This is a realm, a dimension of existence, like Dante's Inferno, the 9 circles of hell. It was a different dimension for each one, a different level of it. But I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate you watching. The only thing I ask in return, because none of this came from me. God led me to it. I don't want anything for it, and I'll never put a commercial on my video. I could have wrote a book, volumes of books on this. I just don't think it's right to profit off this, and that's just for me. Other people, if you need to, or that's what you're led to do, that's what you're led to do. But the only thing I ask in return is, I don't even care if you share my video. It's just get this information out. Look at these definitions of meanings and get this information out, And I'm not asking you to go against the Bible at all. Even if you believe some different things than I do, that's fine. We can disagree on things, as long as our basic, that we're in agreement about Jesus, that He's our Savior, He did it all, that we can only be saved through Him and repent, and that's the main thing. Other things, that the rapture and the timing, that's going to be up to everyone to figure out for themselves. But this information with the definitions is crucial, especially, like I said, with Carl Lentz, that information with the courts. Things can start to change immediately, at least for you. It has for me already with multiple instances, and I can go into more of those later, but things I've used this with. Just the simple letter writing takes care of 99% of all of it. I mean, they're not going to respond. No one's ever going to send something back with their name signed to it, because if they're wrong, they can be held personally liable for that amount. So they're going to be very careful. They're not going to sign their name to these things. Just get the information out. All right. God bless you all, and thank you again for watching and your comments. I always appreciate the comments. This world's tough enough, and just because I make a YouTube video knowing, a little about one area, this world beats me up. I get sad, I get depressed. It's frustrating being here. I don't want to be here. And just thinking about all this craziness is a lot. So I do appreciate your comments. For people that don't like it, disagree, that's fine. I mean, you can say whatever you want. That stuff rolls off my back. But all I can say is, look into it. Just like that guy that was attacking me for, the speed of light. I had to tell him countless times that it wasn't even it was from his own people saying it. And then after finally days of, just coming at me, he finally then says a post, "Oh, I just looked into this." You are correct. But, even though he just looked into it, you just attacked me for days, saying all this bullshit, all this nonsense, excuse my language, and you never even looked into it? I'm telling you, it's not even, it was stupid and idiotic and, because he thought it came from a Christian. Even after I told him it didn't, he still took him days or a week or so to look, finally even glance at it, to look into it, and then right away he comes back with more assumptions and how he's correct that it. We can assume that. No, you can't assume, because assume in law means you're liable. A presumption is an error. An assumption means you're liable, and I think that's why they deliberately use that word assumptions in their new science. That's all based on assumptions and probability, and not fact, or knowing through observation, is which science original definition was. So again, they've changed that as well. All right, everyone. God bless you, and take care.